ahead and record the call. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Higher Moment Mastermind. I'm Shira Lotzar, happy to be your host today, joined by my colleague, Vern Schellinger. Hopefully, Alki Thompson will join us as well. He's another fellow guest coach. So we welcome you here today. And for those of you who are new, this is an open Q&A for you to ask any job search question that is top of mind, whatever it is on any topic. Today, Vern and I will be helping you out and sharing advice for the next hour or so, and look forward to engaging. So who's got a question to kick us off?
Sure, I just have one. And Vern, can you give something about your background?
Well, my background, most of my career was in human resources and learning and development. So I've been in senior positions, both in learning and training and in senior positions in HR. I did spend from 1998 to 2014 in the DC area. So very familiar. That's how Shira and I met. And currently I own a company called Contacts Count, which is focused on teaching people skills, behaviors, tools, strategies that help you learn how to more effectively network and build relationships.
And did you work in the private, public sector and large, small organizations? All.
All
of the above.
Okay.
I'll talk to anybody anywhere in the world about networking at any time. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks
You're
for asking
welcome.
that, Noni. And Alki has actually joined us. Alki, will you be able to come on video? There we go.
Yes.
Alki, do you want to give 2 seconds? We have a few new folks today. Hey, Robert, good to see you.
Morning.
You want to go ahead and share just a second about your background? Then Noni, I'll just share it also, since just to let people know what we all do.
Oh, thank you.
Sure. Morning, everybody. Recruiter in many spaces, agency, corporate, independent, and seen a lot of resumes, been a part of a lot of interviews, and just here to offer my 2 cents as always.
Yes, thank you, Alki. We appreciate both you and Vern. And yeah, I'll just give you 2 seconds about myself. I have lots of lanes to my highway. My name of my company is Purposeful Hire. My tagline is, for every hire, there is a higher purpose, and I believe that with my heart. I do 2 main things in the world. I'm a recruiter, mostly for associations. I'm also a career coach. I write resumes and LinkedIn profiles and help folks with their job search. And I do several other things in the workforce, like executive coaching and generational diversity stuff and all kinds of other things. But the recruiting and career coaching gives me a kind of a both sides of the hiring aisle perspective that I bring to conversations like this. So between the 3 of us, we kind of, have a pretty well-rounded perspective. One thing that we don't engage in, none of us are experts in the federal government resumes. We've sometimes played with government contractors, but we don't have specialty in how to help people get into the federal government. If that's something that someone's looking for, we do have a colleague. Her name is Corliss Jackson. That is all that she specializes in. But other than that, we're pretty well-rounded. So thank you, Noni, for kicking that off. We haven't actually done intros like that in a long time, so thanks for that. All right, so who's got a question that you'd like to kick us off with? Are your job search going?
Job search is going so well.
So well, you don't have any. Robert.
Yes. I'm raising my hand because I couldn't find the icon to raise my hand.
Yeah, they have a new one. They do have a raise hand now, and then they also have a react button, which are now 2 different Zoom buttons. They keep changing things.
So, well, yesterday, many times and applying online, I'm back in the market, so apply online, and they ask you for a resume. Upload your resume and we'll populate our world with it. And it always gets ruined. So yesterday I tried 3 things: uploading from a PDF, uploading from Word, uploading from rich text format. It was, I won't name the organization, but they are huge and proud and known all over the world and boastful about how wonderful they are. I mean, truly boastful. It pulled the jobs and put them in no sensible order whatsoever. It was like they'd taken a bunch of papers with numbers on them, thrown them up in the air, and just, it was ruined, not to mention the format. So had to go in, fix it. Moreover, I couldn't add another slot. I really needed to add a slot to put in the last job, which was on my resume. Now, they asked do you want to upload something else? I just uploaded a resume and evidently it didn't populate, but I know this is a technical issue, but has anybody run into that? And does anybody have anything to say about that? This was the worst ever, but it happens all the time in some major way. And yeah, usually I just have a text file that I just cut and paste, cut and paste, cut and paste. But if you can't start by cut and pasting, that's what you wind up with.
It's very interesting. You know, well, I don't have a solution for you, Robert. What I will suggest is that the world of applicant tracking systems, ATSs, has continually changes. And just by the way, for what it's worth, I'm going to make a larger comment about the fact that you mentioned that this is a name brand kind of a thing. Just know that whatever the company is and whatever their culture is and whatever, their HR function and specifically their recruitment function, and more specifically, the technology vendors that they use may have nothing to do with their actual corporate culture and their brand, right? Because they could be working with a company that has a technology that has got glitches and bugs and whatever, right? You don't know that because it's all connected to the brand of the company, but it's not really. It's this other thing, right? So they may or may not even know that. For all we know, they just created a new AI version of their recruitment system that has bugs that they're not even aware of because candidates can't tell them or won't tell them or anything. So they don't even know necessarily what's going on, or maybe they do. And as we speak, their engineers are working on it. You know, who knows? So just for what that's worth, you know, we don't necessarily connect them. But with that said, you know, look, I mean, you got to really pack your patience with these things because employers are getting, especially large companies, are getting inundated with resumes, especially for remote jobs. Because now they can search all over the country for people instead of going geographically local. So they'll get hundreds and thousands of resumes, and they have to figure out a way to synthesize all of that in a way that's meaningful and easier for the poor recruiters who are overwhelmed. So that's all by way of explanation, not necessarily a solution, but just maybe to give you a little bit of understanding of what's going on. So I don't know if others have thoughts. Tammy, were you going to ask a question or were you going to comment on Robert?
No, just a question.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Alki, do you play in that world at all, or Vern? Do you have any thoughts?
If I'm correct, Robert, are you saying that you uploaded your resume to either a company site or a job board, and then when you did that, the version that was spit out was something totally different?
It was a company site, and I'm used to the messing up the format and breaking up the lines, and you go in and clean it. But this time, just imagine a list of jobs. It was like randomly scrambled. It was unbelievable, and it pulled things that were not in a job section and made them jobs.
Oh, you're saying you applied and kind of in a search format, you threw your resume into a box, and you're like,
Yes,
all right, let's see what jobs
it
match
says
my search.
it says upload here, and we will populate our fields with your resume. I mean, you have no choice really. You couldn't just go in there and just start putting things in, right?
So I've been many times as a corporate recruiter. I've been on the other side of that, and most times I don't think I've ever seen any software, and I've seen a bunch of them. I don't think I've ever seen a software that perfectly parses a resume, literally the twin identical version of your resume. So you will just have to prepare yourself. As Shira was saying, packing your patience, be prepared that that's just part of what comes with the territory. If somebody tells you to upload it and then they're going to drop it or drip it into some fields, now you're going to have to go back and double check, which you should want to do anyway, because some companies, like Shira said, they use different systems. I've worked with many. Some they focus on like, all right, titles, and then you look at the title and that doesn't fit. You have to go in and kind of change your resume, which is what we talk about all the time, is customize the answers to match their company culture, what the job is, what that department is. So yeah, you got to pack your patience, you and everybody else on this call. Any uploads of resumes, what it spits out on the other side, which is why I tell people, if nothing else, I heard you talk about you did it in different versions. I don't know if Word ever works. I always tell people use a PDF because that helps cut it down. But Word,
yeah, I usually start with Word. I'm not sorry. I usually start with the PDF. That was the first thing I did, but it was so messed up. I thought, change it to rich text format, see what happens. No.
Well, remember too that there is no one standard way of writing resumes, and the computer has to figure out and decipher, what's a title versus the company name versus the this versus the that, and everybody's doing it all differently. So I'm amazed that they get it right at all, right? Because we give them so many different formats for it to figure out. So yeah, I think the pack your patience is going to be your best advice here.
Yeah, so let me add a point here that will take us in a little bit of a different direction, but one that we talk about often. Robert, you're trying to get your resume into this company. And while it's, we certainly don't say don't apply online if you see a job that really matches, your background and skills. But we also emphasize the importance of trying to network and find somebody in that company who knows you, or a friend of somebody that's in that company, who can literally hand your resume to the hiring manager. And so spending as much time applying online, spend time networking to try to find connections into that company where like literally your resume will be handed to someone.
Yeah, we
Sure.
call that an internal champion.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
thank you for that. Right. Yeah, actually, the day before I did all this, because I started with LinkedIn, I sent personalized LinkedIn notes to 3 people who seemed like they were tied into this.
Okay. Yeah.
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 And the more the better. You can be a squeaky wheel. You should be a squeaky wheel. I mean, look, imagine if a hiring manager got your resume from 3, 4, 5 people. They're like, all right, I'll meet him. So it's good. So keep finding people to help you.
Yeah.
Robert, can I ask you more about your experience? Because I have not done that yet of, going to a person in LinkedIn, I'm going to call it a cold call. And I'm uncomfortable, which I realize we have to get out of our comfort zone. What has your experience been?
Well, I have to tell you, the networking, and and going into meetings and people tell you to network, at some point I thought about it, and de facto, most of my employment has been network. Sometimes I wasn't actively looking, sometimes I was found. And doing this, sending it out like letters to people on LinkedIn within a company, this is new. So, we have to be continued. When I was doing something slightly different, I've written those to people on LinkedIn, and they've come aboard, and I've spoken with them. But sending a note to someone in LinkedIn to get into a company job, this is actually the first time I've done it. As long as I've known a couple of people like Shira and others who have said to do this, like up to this point, I've been personally networking. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the way of the world these days because there's just so much noise out there, so much competition. Everybody's trying to find each other. So people sort of know this is just what's done. LinkedIn is used for people to find each other and say, hey, who do you know? And can you help me? And blah, blah, blah. And yes, you're going to know some of your LinkedIn contacts better than others. You might not know that person at all. This is just what we do now. How is that other person going to receive it? You don't know. You might happen upon someone who's very friendly and generous and compassionate and say, sure, I know I don't know you, Noni, but hey, we're connected on LinkedIn. I have no idea how we met, but okay, fine, sure, happy to help you or whatever, right? You just don't know, but you got to plant a lot of seeds. I always use this analogy on this call. You got to be like a farmer. You got to plant lots and lots and lots of seeds because the birds, the wind, and the rain are going to eat 50% of them. Every farmer knows that. You have to have, in sales, they call it a big funnel, right? Have a big funnel of all the different opportunities. And then if maybe a few people will reach back out or help you land that role, but you've got to really, try because you never know. And remember too, Noni, this is not, and Tammy, definitely see your hand also. It's yes, you're trying to get yourself noticed, but remember too, that this employer is looking for you. They're looking for someone to help them with their business needs. You're helping them help you, and you're by you actually pushing your way forward. You're just like, hey, I'm here. I know you're looking for me.
That's a good way to
You're
put
helping them find
it.
you. You're helping them find you because if you didn't push, you could be the best candidate in the world, and they never would know because their technology, to Robert's point, is getting in the way. Robert, do you think that this recruiting team wants that ATS to have these glitches? Of course not, right? They may not even be aware that this is happening because they're not necessarily on the user side. And a lot of recruiters are so frustrated with their ATSs. They just, if you were to go to a recruiting conference, like we have here in the DC area, we have a conference called Recruit DC. Just so you know, it happens. They meet like every year, and it's hundreds of recruiters locally. It's a conference for recruiters by recruiters. We talk about this exact thing. Oh, the ATS, and oh my gosh, we can't find people. Oh, they can't find us, all this stuff. So there's all this technology that's standing in the way, all this competition that's standing in the way. They cannot find you, right? And so you've got to sort of like cut through the crowd, right? Elbow people out and say, I'm here. And that's part of what you're doing. So I would do it for their sake as much as for yours.
One of the other ways to lessen the Noni, as you said, I'm reaching out to this person I don't know. And Shira talks about this all the time. If you're using LinkedIn and you're focusing on a particular company, can you find someone in your network that's connected to someone in that company? That someone that knows you well introduces you to this person who works in the company. And that's kind of a warmer introduction than you just reaching out cold to the person in the company who doesn't know you. Now, a lot of that will depend on, if the person has a really solid relationship, a really strong relationship with the other person, then the likelihood that the connection will materialize and you'll actually maybe talk to somebody working in the company is pretty good. If it's one of those casual, connections, your contact may reach out to the person and never hear from them. So, but that's, as Shira said, this is what we do right now.
It's all about relationships, and you never know, right? Your relationship to them, their relationship with the other person. Is the person even going to see the message on LinkedIn? A lot of people don't even check their LinkedIn messages, right? So that's another thing. When you reach out via LinkedIn, also reach out via email, wherever you can. Right? If it's a first level person, go to LinkedIn, look at their contact, click on the contact info button. Usually their email is there. Send them a message, send them an email. Just do everything you can to reach the person. If you can't find an email, by the way, let's say for a second or third level person, there are a number of different sites out there where you can find email addresses. One of them is called hunter.io. Hunter.io. And you put in the information and it'll try to give you what they believe to be the email address of that person and their company. So, Tammy, you've been patiently waiting. How can we help you?
Good morning. I have found quite a few, speaking of technology, apps that will help you track your job searching, but they start, from the time that you've applied, and it'll go all the way down to, the offer received or declined or whatever. What I'm finding I need is something other than a spreadsheet, which I'm using right now to track all of my networking activity. And so these are the calls, the notes, the feedback, resources that people provide. Hey, you need to talk to so-and-so over at so-and-so. And then just, the follow-ups. Oh, I need a tickler that basically tells me I need to touch base with this person in 2 weeks, that stuff. And so, Shira, you mentioned a sales funnel, but I think that's what this is, right? A sales funnel in terms of your networking. Yeah. And so, other than maybe like a CRM system,
that's actually exactly what I was thinking. I mean, you don't have to go purchase Salesforce, obviously, but
right.
a much lighter version of that, or maybe a freebie version. I don't even know if Zoho would be considered that. I think Zoho is a little more on the database side, but Zoho may be a possibility for you. Or even a project management tracking system like Monday.com. Something like that. That's very sort of, easy, user-friendly, but just helps you with the project tracking of it.
Yeah, I was flirting with HubSpot. I'm going to spend a little bit more time.
HubSpot's a good one. Sure.
Investigating it, because I want something that will integrate both with LinkedIn, but also will integrate with like Gmail, that would help me.
I would try HubSpot.
Stuff like that. But I was wondering, like, if it doesn't exist, I think that's a great idea for somebody to come up with an app, because that is a sweet spot. And it would be great if it went all the way from sort of lead generation, the networking stuff. Here's how I found out about this particular opportunity, all the way until the offer is
Yeah.
actually. So a full scale, networking and job search strategy. And I think it would be helpful really for me because I revamped my networking strategy last week because I realized it wasn't necessarily serving me well. And so I have a broader networking strategy, but there's a pull version and then there's a push version. Push version is what I call the linking to, I boss hunt. I try to identify who potentially at my target firms could be my boss. And I reach out to them and I want to be on their radar screen before a posting ever, comes up. But I also want to be connected to several recruiters at that company as well, as many as possible. And then I have a referral strategy and I want at least 3 people at that target firm, to fit into 3 different buckets. The first is my scouts, and they typically tend to be younger people because 1, they want the referral bonus, and 2, they would love to help network for you to network for themselves. So it's a win-win. It gives them an opportunity or reason to find out about a different line of business or other people in the company. And then I want a guru. That's been a person who's been there forever, 5, 10, 20 years. They know everybody. They can give me, yes, here's the salary range, but this is probably, what you can get, in that range based on your experience. Or they know everyone and, oh, stay away from that department. Those people are crazy. Or you'd be the 3rd person a year in that role and, here's why, and, rethink that decision. And then finally is a closer. And that's a person who may or may not be in that company, but they have some tie to the hiring manager. And they're the person who gets you over the line. Hey, that might be your reference source, right? Or that's the person who says, not only should they be on your interview schedule, you need to give this person a job, and here's why. And so that's kind of, between the push and the pull and, complementing or filling out my network, that's kind of my new strategies. But that's a lot of touches and a lot of calls. And, frankly, a spreadsheet is not going to be able to really withstand.
Tammy, are you familiar with hunter.co or
Yeah, that's
Jobber?
one of the good ones. But again, that or Teal is another one that's
Yeah.
it's with the application submitted and then it goes. What I need is something that goes, pre-application submitted.
Interesting. Oh, the networking part of it, you mean?
Yeah,
The pipeline development, as you were saying.
exactly. And that truly
Yeah.
is a sales funnel. You never know where it'll go,
Right.
but technically you start with many, many contacts. And then, as you
Right.
really identify a lead or an opportunity, that narrows as you go through.
Look, I mean, we're all about new ideas here. And so maybe, if you try out HubSpot or something similar, come back and report back to us and see how it worked. We'd love
Definitely.
to share the
I
best.
was going to spend a couple hours this weekend just checking it out. It is free, and I know that it does integrate with LinkedIn, and it integrates with, I think, Gmail and the Google suite of apps. So that might be, like the calendar and stuff. So I'll let you know
Thank
how
you.
it goes.
That's great. And Noni, you still have your hand up. Did you have another question, or were you?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
And I think these are simple questions. First off, what I'm seeing when I have applied for some positions is you have the choice of being part of the ATS or not. And I've typically not checked it to be not part of the ATS. And yesterday I thought, oh, when I applied for a job, I didn't check it. I'm sorry, I did check it to be excluded from the ATS. Thoughts, experience?
Well, I'm kind of curious as to why you would exclude yourself. What did you think the advantage would be there?
That someone would actually look at my resume versus it just going through the ATS.
Oh, interesting.
And I don't know what they really do internally, and it may vary by company, etc. But they do put the option. I don't know if others have run across that too, where it'll ask whether or not you want to be part of the ATS or if you want to be excluded from the ATS.
Yeah. Alki, do you have experience with that? People doing that, asking that question?
To be excluded from the ATS?
Mm-hmm.
You mean when you're applying?
Yeah, when you're applying, it'll have a little checkbox in some cases, not all, and it'll say, do you want to be excluded from the ATS system? In other words, that someone will supposedly look at your resume.
At first, I was trying to think if that's a thing, because most companies, when you apply, they all have a system, some system that they have to. I mean, it is the applicant system.
Yeah.
The only thing I can think of is, I think there are some companies that I've seen where you apply for a specific job and they keep you only attached to that specific job versus you going on file per se. But for the most part, unless they use some type of an outside recruiting firm or something separate, you're always a part of their applicant tracking system, always. Now, again, I think the difference that I'm hearing, possibly what I've seen, the only thing I've seen is you being tied to a specific job versus just remaining on file for their whole system and all their recruiters and all their managers and the whole company and have access to your resume.
Yeah, these are all for specific jobs that I've applied to where it'll have that option. Has anyone else had that experience where you
Right.
I've never
applied
heard
to
of this. That's why I'm a little
yeah,
scratching my head, like, what is this?
the only
I
opt
haven't
out,
heard of it either.
the only opt out that I've ever seen with any company is from, can we contact you by text? Can we send you opportunities, to your email? But for the most part, and again, every company is different. There are some small companies who technically don't have an applicant tracking system, but for the most part, every company, like once you apply, you are part of their tracking system, unless they just don't have a system, which I don't. They have to have a way that they manage their applicants, because they got to call you back. They got to be able to go back and access your resume and look at your resume. So I've actually never seen that. To Shira's point, I've never seen an option to not be a part of the ATS. The only thing I've seen close to that is basically them asking, hey, do you only want us to tie you to the jobs you applied to, and thus, if we have another opportunity that opens, we will not contact you and tie you to that opportunity at all. That's the closest thing. I haven't seen anything like that though.
Yeah, I would agree with, I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name, Alki.
Alki. Mhm.
Maybe, I mean, I don't know how to go back. Maybe it's like the wording is confusing and you're misunderstanding it. I mean, I've seen where I do taxes on the side. I haven't been on this call for a while, so people probably don't know that. And I'll see where an IRS letter specifically says what to do. And people will come in and saying, what do I do, or not understand it. So, a lot of it is people they are thinking one thing and they misread something to what they're thinking or whatever. But it's probably, once you apply to the job, they're probably asking, do you want your information to be stored in the ATS for future jobs? Or do you just want, once this job is over, we purge your information out and is as if you never applied?
You know what?
Maybe it's, do you want your information to be kept by the ATS? Like, meaning for future jobs. That is very most likely what it means.
Well, and I wonder too, Scott, to your point around, are we misinterpreting? Noni, and I think Barb, you put in the chat too that you've seen it. Is it that the organization is opting out of that's it, Lisa, that's what I was about to mention, is opting out of having it reviewed by AI, not whether or not it's
that
ATS,
could
but
be
whether
it.
it gets reviewed by AI. And that's exactly it, Lisa. In fact, I was Googling as we were talking, and if everybody Googled opting out of the ATS, what came up was, first article was, should I opt out of artificial intelligence resume? So it says opting out might result in longer wait periods for application reviews, delaying your job search, reduce visibility, AI-driven screenings, prioritize speed and efficiency, blah, blah, blah. The next article says, should you opt into AI resume review scoring, blah, blah, blah. So I think it might be.
I think that's what it is. Yeah. Lisa, thank you for saying that, because I think it may have been AI. I was going to take a screenshot of it next time I see it. But I think it is the AI. And so I don't know if that's an advantage to opt out or not. And it may depend upon the company.
Look, I think we're all learning here, right?
Yeah.
As AI gets more complicated and sophisticated and all this stuff. One thing I would sort of offer is that regardless of whether AI is screening it or the ATS is screening it, as opposed to eyeballs, and even when eyeballs are screening it, one thing we always talk about here is keywords, 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 right? Just like location, location, location. That's the kicker for resumes, because employers, and this is one of the most important resume screening pieces of advice that any of us could provide. And that is the idea of tailoring your resume for every single job, which I know sounds ridiculous and it sounds overwhelming. It doesn't have to be if you have a resume that is designed that way. Now, it happens to be the resume that I write for folks does, and I know other people use the same similar format. But what I do is I have, accomplishment stories that are labeled with bolded keywords next to the accomplishment story. And then why that works, Noni, is because that very label, that skill label, that can be easily tailored, tweaked. So the example I like to give is a simple example is, on your resume, you said meeting planning, and on the job posting, they said event planning, which are very similar. So you now say event planning. Okay, there's a lot of synonyms here that you can be using. Or it could be that it's something completely different. It's, they had a totally different competency you didn't even have on your resume yet. But you noticed in the qualification section, in the first 3 to 4 bullets, let me say that again, the first 3 to 4 bullets of their qualifications, where they're talking about skill ABC or even industry experience, you have it, but you had not yet labeled it that way. So it's just not there. But you could take one of those stories and, if you will, extract, oh, yes, of course, the competency is baked in there. I just hadn't labeled it that way, but it's in the job posting. And your job is to make sure that all the way through, from the top to the bottom, the top meaning your career headline, which some people don't even have this, but I do recommend it. Your career headline is that, if you will, job title, not your last official job title, but like, digital marketing executive or that kind of thing, right? Or, customer service representative, or, accounting professional or something like that, that lines up with that posting. That should be tweaked. The keyword should be tweaked. If you have a text box, if you have those labels, all of those things are tweakable, if you will, right? So you don't have to change everything, but you have to make sure that those keywords are match up to what the job description is saying. Otherwise, it is easy to get lost, regardless of whether an ATS or eyeballs are reading it.
A question/comment. In November of 22, ChatGPT came out and made AI a mass marketable term. But AI has been around
Forever.
I forget, in the Army since 1950, whatever, or whatever. I mean, the purpose of whenever ATSs were created and keyword scoring and everything has been around, I mean, forever. And that basically, other than collecting it, I mean, giving it a sort order or something, your resume's been reviewed by ATSs, even though it wasn't called AI. It has been being reviewed by AI for a lot longer than 2 years now.
That's right. That's right. Yep. We've had artificial intelligence of one sort or another filtering, right? So that's all the more reason why you've got to use the language that they use, because that's what the recruiters are doing on their end. They're going into their ATS, which is a database. ATS are databases, and they're typing in that search field whatever keywords they want to go extract. Because remember, guys, when you put your resume into an ATS, meaning it's the database for that employer, it's for all of the jobs that the employer has ever searched for or will ever use, all of the jobs. So there are thousands of resumes in there. They need to put keywords in there to extract your resume for that particular role. So they're going to put the title in, or they're going to put some keywords. For example, let's say they're looking for a project manager. They might put in the search term PMP, because they know that the PMPs that the project managers are looking for are going to have that certification, and then people are going to come up. So be really thoughtful about those keywords so that you can be found. That's
Now,
sort of
the one thing I could say, going back to her question though, does anybody know if that box is checked off to avoid AI reviewing and having a person? Would that mean that a person would only review it if they don't get any responses from the machine scorings?
So this is a whole probably 2-day seminar right here, just talking about what happens when you apply, when you apply online, that is, which is, I'll sneak in another advertising for this Friday call that we do. All the more reason It's just way better to find somebody who has a connection, get them your resume or get an introduction and have them do the introduction for you, because then you're no longer a stranger. You're a stranger when you apply online. Unless you have a contact or somebody knows you, you are a complete stranger when you click submit and apply. I don't care if it's the ATS, what they're calling AI, and do you opt in, you're a stranger. I don't care if it's me, the recruiter, who has done this thousands of times when I've worked in-house recruiting. I come in the morning, turn on the ATS, which is, you know, the bread and butter that I would work by when I worked in-house. And I'm like, all right, let me see who's applied to my marketing job that I posted yesterday. Oh, 55 people. And usually it's who applied first, and it's in that order. Now, most ATSs, to Shira's point, I can then go in, you talk about this, is AI reading it? I can't speak to some of the newer age companies in tech that they're using, because some companies are probably using a little bit more higher end tech now. But for the most part, I came in at every job I ever worked in. And I came in and I was the eyeball who turned on the ATS, logged in the morning and said, okay, let me look at the 12 jobs that I have posted, who applied yesterday. And my eyes saw that first. And to Shira's point, let's say I had an open job and I didn't have any good candidates. And I'm like, well, we have this job for the last 15 years. Let me just type in then project manager and see who's applied over the last 5 years to see if there's any good resumes that are in there. That's your AI. That's your keywording. And again, there may be some new companies who are using literally an AI who's like, hey, go out and find me and populate the top 10 resumes first, so that when I come in the morning, only those will be at the top. Maybe. But when it asks that, that's, even as a recruiter, I've seen that. And I'm like, when I see it, I'm like, really? Do you want AI to, you know, to review your resume, or a human? I kind of, in 13 years, I kind of don't really know what that means, unless they literally do have a new system that's doing it. Because for the most part, most companies use a human to see it. And tying this all into what Shira said, doesn't matter how you do it. At the end of the day, you need to look at every job you apply for and look at what they're asking for, the responsibilities, the requirements, and you need to make sure you word your resume as close as identical twin possible to what they're asking for. That's your safest bet if you're going to apply online. And even if you hand somebody your resume, but especially if you don't have a live person who can go in and go, you know, hey, Joe, you're hiring for this position. I've got a buddy and they've got this and they've got that. That's a better lead in. But if you're going to apply online, your best bet, whether it's AI, real AI, fake AI software, ATS, recruiter, make sure your resume is an identical match as much as you possibly can to what they're asking for.
Exactly. Thank you, Alka. That was very good. Okay, so Tammy and then Barb.
I heard about this really recently. I don't think one-way interviews are new necessarily, although, and that those are ones where, you know, the candidate records their response to, you know, probably a series of questions that the company has for them. But I hear now that they're replacing phone screens, and that some companies are using AI to evaluate them. And I don't know if that's like, you know, a BS detector, or was that a lie or something? But I've heard about it 3 times in the last 3 weeks from people who are also looking, and I just wanted your thoughts on that.
Not surprised. You know, employers are trying to do everything they can to be more and more efficient, whatever they think is going to be the latest, greatest. Remember, they're getting marketed to by technology vendors who are saying, hey, you can save time. Hey, you can, you know, increase your efficiency. Hey, you can this, that, and the other. So I haven't heard of it, but I'm not surprised whatsoever. Again, Tammy, you know, thank you for bringing this, because, you know, we're all learning. Just doesn't surprise me. Yeah, at all. Alki, have you heard of this?
Yeah, it's happening. I don't want to say companies are getting lazy. I don't want to use that word. Some are trying to be more efficient. And talking to me and Shira, we're gonna fight for recruiters all day. We're gonna go, yep, we're recruiters, human being. We do it the best, and we deliver. We're detailed. We check everything that needs to be checked. But I won't lie. You know, some companies are saving time by saying, you know what, instead of even screening 400 resumes for this job, let's first weed out everybody who's not going to sit down and record for us. Let's send a video in, and let's do an audition. And that way we cover a lot of bases. They get to see your tone, what you dress like, what you look like. They get a feel for you, right or wrong, biased or not. It's one way that they use to say, you know, hey, we've met them. We're not even going to talk to them. And it is a way that they're using to screen. And yeah, some companies, again, I don't know how it's done, but they are using AI to some software technology to screen those and compile. And I'll add this in too real quick. It's not a fair game. Applying for jobs and opportunities, it's not fair. You could not get a call back just because of the letter T. It is not bolded on you know, you can get tossed out by that. You can get tossed out by a word. You can get tossed out by, you blink too many times, you know, on one of those video things. And so again, we say it on this call too, your efforts, most of your efforts, 80%, I don't know, Sherry, you say 80% of your search, 85% of your search should
Networking.
be networking, and 10 to 15% applying online.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, like, you're going to apply, okay, go ahead. But I tell
Don't
people to slow
focus
down
there.
first and try to find another way first, because once you toss your hat in the ring, I call it being blacklisted. You could be blacklisted, you know, by for whatever reason. So
They're also using these sort of games. You know, they're positioned as games, but they're meant to sort of test your decision making and whatever. And those are basically evaluated by AI as well. And then, you know, the problem is that a lot of these things are done up front. So they're gatekeepers. So if you don't pass this test or whatever, you don't advance within, you know, the recruiting process.
Yeah.
Again, every company is going to go about the recruiting process in their own way. One of the things that, and again, having been in a lot of HR roles and have done a lot of recruiting in my career from inside a company, one of the things the videos or any of these screening devices can, where it can save time, is simply scheduling the interview. You know, if you're internal, as I was, to a company, and I've got a vice president, and I've got the director, and I've got the manager, and they all want to see the candidate, trying to figure out where they're all going to be available on the same day at the same time or within a time frame, sometimes that'd take a week to figure out. Whereas, you know, if there's a way for them to get a preview of the candidates, you know, in the evening at 8 o'clock, they can look at a 15-20 minute video and make a decision. It does create an efficiency. Again, to Alki's part, is the point. Is that fair? No, that's not fair. But when you got, you're recruiting for 15, 20 different jobs all at the same time, which takes time, it is a small advantage on the company's part, not necessarily on your part as the candidate.
All right, Barb, and then Robert.
Yeah, so thank you for that, Vern, because and Alki, because I just wrote in big letters, it's not fair. So I get past my belief that it's got to be fair, because like they hold us to a standard, you know, to apply, and then like their systems don't even, Anyway, like I love when there's typos in the job descriptions and such, and then they get mad at you because there's a typo in your resume. Like, not that we'd have one, but you know what I mean. I have actually two basic kind of questions, because I'm still kind of feel like I'm not even out of the gate in my job search, or just barely. So, and I hear mixed reviews on this one, so I'd like your thoughts. So putting a phone number on my resume, do I use Google Voice? Do I use my cell phone? My thought is use my cell phone, because I want to make sure I answer that phone call. Google Voice may go to voicemail. I don't want to miss out, you know, I got FOMO on that one. And then the other one is, how do you find recruiters? So if you guys could help me with those two, that'd be great. Thanks.
I was answering somebody's chat, so I apologize that I missed the first part of your question. Could you repeat that first part about Google Voice and texting?
Yeah, so I've had people tell me to put a Google Voice number on my resume. And my thought is that could go to voicemail and I miss the call because it's Google Voice, as opposed to just being my cell phone number. I haven't posted to job boards. I'm just posting directly to companies.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'd say just put your cell phone. I mean, that's going to be the most straightforward. The recruiter could also text you. You know, you don't want to miss anything. That would be.
Excuse me. really the purpose of Google Voice and why people say to get it. And it's a lot of the times where people don't want to give their personal cell phone numbers, or for security risks, for usually for females, they're concerned about stalkers and everything. Google Voice, when you set it up to forward it to a number, which would be your cell phone. And then you have a choice to either you prompt it to give the caller, it goes, "You have reached Google Voice. Will you please leave your name so your party could be found?" And then when it rings with a customer's number, and you press 1 to accept the call. So you see who's coming, but that means you have to press 1. So if you're driving, you can't just say to your Bluetooth to answer it. You physically have to press 1. Or you have it to where you don't do it, but then it comes up with your Google phone number and you don't know who's calling. But it's not that it doesn't go to your cell phone and you miss calls. It would also go to your cell phone.
But does it all,
Yeah,
but Scott, what about texting? If a recruiter texts the Google Voice, is it the same kind of thing?
That's true. I think the texts only do. I
Yeah.
don't know if you can set up to go to us
Yeah, you can.
texting.
I would, yeah.
My texts only go to my computer because I use it for my tax service.
For all those reasons, I actually would still recommend just plain old cell phone.
Did Alki say that I can go to you texting on my phone?
I was speaking too fast. I thought the question was going to be, you know, being able to access those texts. I don't think you can forward text just yet. And I'll add on to what you guys are talking about, what Shira was saying too. Everything on your resume is a personal choice. I do resumes, Shira does them. I don't know if Vern does them or not, but I know he advises people. Everything that you do and everything that you put on there, you can do whatever you want. Some people, you know, still put their address on there, and I say no, because you don't want people finding that. But if you choose to, it's up to you. If you put your phone number, some people don't put a phone number; they just go by email. But with every choice, just like Shira was talking about with your keywords, everything that you decide to put out there into the ether, resume or not, there'll be some repercussions. So let's say you choose to use Google Voice. Some, not all recruiters, because if recruiters wants to talk to you, they're going to talk to you. But some may be pressed for time, or like Vern said, they're like, oh, man, I got 5 minutes and I got 2 candidates I got to call, and I got to go pick up my son from daycare. So I'm going to sneak in these 2 calls, these 2 candidates real quick. Well, if one goes to Google Voice, that recruiter might go to the voicemail. That recruiter may go, I'm not going to do it. They may not, but you should be thinking, to Shira's point, I probably would play it safe. Unless I had a real security issue, I'd play it safe and just make it as easy as possible for recruiters to reach you.
That's
what I was thinking.
It's a general thought. I'm going to take that to another level, and I'm going to go to LinkedIn for a second. Here's this continuing theme of make it easy for the recruiter to find you.
Mhm.
Here it is. In your LinkedIn about section, I recommend put in your email address. Now, if you want to be a little extra careful, you can put the little dashes instead of the @ sign. You can say, Barb, dash AT dash Miller, right? That kind of thing. But absolutely, at Gmail, or sorry, Barb Miller dash AT dash Gmail. I absolutely would do that, because otherwise, if a recruiter's looking at you on LinkedIn, they have to go to the connection button. They have to do the whole thing, right? But this way, you're just making it super easy, to find you.
Thank you. And then can you just help me also with how to find recruiters too?
Oh, I apologize. Yeah, Robert, I'll answer that question. All right, this is not a 2-second answer, but I'll do my best, and Vern and Halki, feel free to chime in. So it actually bears a longer explanation than simply the technical, how do you find recruiters? The question is, what recruiters are you finding? Who are recruiters anyway? So if you don't mind, I'm just going to, we haven't done this little speech in a while, so let's just go for it. Okay, so you've got several kinds of recruiters out there, and I'm going to explain to everybody the sort of the categories that recruiters fall into, and then also the kinds of searches that different recruiters do, because they're all different. So you've got what's called corporate recruiters. A corporate recruiter is somebody who works in-house. Alki used to be one of those people. You work for a company, you get a paycheck, you have 30 to 50 open job requisitions on your desk, right? You are the recruiter for pick a company. Then we get into was a lot of people call headhunters, which we're fine with. Headhunters, by the way, is not a pejorative term. It literally comes from the term hunting heads of companies. Okay, so that's where it comes from. But in other words, third-party recruiters. And those third-party recruiters fall into different categories. Number one, people who do what's called retained search. So that's what the kind of recruiting that I do, where we're engaged by a company. That company is exclusively working with us. They are paying us a fee in stages to do that search. Often it's for higher level searches, but could be for lower as well. And that employer is dedicated to that recruiter. Like there is that synergistic relationship. That retained firm is going deep into the company, understanding what's going on, right? And the candidate often has a better experience because the recruiter knows what's going on, because they have the time to, because the employer is investing in the search. Then there's what's called contingent recruiters, which a lot of you folks have probably engaged with. A contingent recruiter, also like a retained recruiter, does permanent full-time search, or majority. However, the contingent recruiter is only getting paid at the end of the search if they make the placement. And what's important for you to know about that is basically they're working for free until they fill the job, which also means that they are competing with other firms. When an employer engages a contingent firm, the employer is saying, I'm not going to make an investment in that firm. I'm not going to lay down any money up front. And I'm doing that because I want to see all the recruiters out there, and basically who first come, first serve, who's going to get me the best candidate. They make the recruiters compete with each other. And so those recruiters have to have a volume of searches in order to make a living. So they're working with tons of searches. The recruiter literally does not have the time typically to invest in the full search process in terms of understanding the company and all these different things, in which case you as a candidate are going to feel that effect. You're often going to feel very much like a little bit of cattle. Like they call you and then they say they're going to follow up and they don't, and then all these different things. So when we hear about candidates who have not such great experiences with recruiters, oftentimes it's contingent. Not all contingents are recruit. I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. It's just the nature of the contingent recruiting process means they just can't dedicate as much time to the candidates or to the clients because they're working for free. And then you have what's called staffing agencies. Those are your temp firms, right? And they're going to do what's called temp to hire. They're going to do contract. Now, of course, retained and contingent firms may also do a little bit of staffing, contract, permanent, part-time, gig, that kind of cuts across. But the staffing firms oftentimes they mostly do temp to hire. That's where you're going to find, of course, your interim, kind of work. And they too have they're not as able to go kind of as deep. So that's that. Then there's another layer, okay? Beyond the business model of the recruiters, which I just mentioned, then there's what we call the verticals. What career fields or what industries is that recruiter specializing in? So put the corporate recruiters aside for a second, because when they're in one company and they're recruited for all kinds of things. But Barb, I think part of what you're talking about in addition to those folks is, okay, I'm in profession X or I'm in industry Y. Who are my recruiters? Who do I go after? So there's a couple of things to know. First of all, there's not, in terms of in the third party recruiting world, there is not a recruiter for everybody. Here's why. There's one very important reason. The employer is investing in that search, which means the employer has to feel that it's worth it for them to invest. It's expensive. Let's just be very real about this. So I'll give you an example. Take social workers. Wonderful people, right? Great profession. Social workers don't make a lot of money. A social working agency is very unlikely to use a search firm to go hire a social worker because the social working agency doesn't have a lot of money. They don't have a lot of budget, okay? And that's just one very small example. Lots and lots of companies are not going to spend money investing in hiring for certain roles. Therefore, you don't necessarily, I'm guessing, I don't know the social work world. I'm making that up, okay? I'm going to guess there are probably few, if any, search firms that specialize in recruiting for social workers. Or take the government relations world, lobbying, I play in that world. Yes, there are search firms that do it. I myself do government relations search. But guess what? In the government relations world, people find each other through networking. They often don't need to use a recruiter because the vice president of government relations has a huge connection with other lobbyists and people in Capitol Hill. They don't need does that make sense? So a recruiting firm has to have a business model where there's an employment market that needs them and that wants to invest in the search services. Okay, now you're not going to know necessarily, right, who's out there. So here's now what to know. Okay, so you've got recruiters who do career fields, for example, accounting and finance firms, or a firm that has an accounting and finance practice, or an HR practice, or they just search for marketers. In other words, they search for people in a certain career vertical. And the ones I just mentioned are kind of common. But then you have others, and I happen to fall in this category, that are in industry. So I mostly recruit for associations. There are other search firms that recruit for commercial real estate. Alki and I have a colleague who, a woman she is exclusively in the commercial real estate world, or they recruit for government contractors, or they recruit in financial services. You get the idea, or even for the government. And so now, Barb, with that long intro, what do? So I would recommend going to LinkedIn, and you're going to do the following. Okay, you're going to type in whatever your profession is. Okay, Barb, may I ask what your profession is?
IT.
You're in the perfect position. You are the most classic. That's going to be the easiest for you, actually, because for you, there's actually a term called technical recruiter. Now, when you put in technical recruiter, you're going to get both kinds of recruiters. You're going to get corporate recruiters who internally are called technical recruiters because it's its own specialty area. You're also going to get the third-party firms. That means on the one hand, you've got a lot of recruiters. The nice part about that is you have a lot of recruiters. And for the most part, recruiters are very open to receiving connection requests from random people. We are what's called Lions, LinkedIn Open Networkers, LION. Most of us will accept people who are somewhere in our sphere. So for me, if an association person reaches out, I'm pretty much likely to say yes, even if I don't know them. Okay. So in your case, you're an IT person, technical recruiters will usually say yes. That doesn't mean they're going to converse with you necessarily, but they will often, right, accept your connection. For people outside of technology, obviously gets a little more complicated, but you're in customer service, you're in marketing, you're in commercial real estate, pick whatever lane, whatever profession you're in, or whatever industry you're in, you can put that term in and then followed by the word recruiter, or if you're looking for recruiters who are internal, the other term of art that's used is talent acquisition. Okay, so talent acquisition or recruiting or recruiter would be the tagline. And then right before that word, put in your profession or your industry, and then just see who comes up. And then again, typically those recruiters, if they're full-time recruiters, will often receive your invitation. So that's my speech.
Thank you. And like you, I have a lot of lanes to my highway too, and I'm trying to zero in on one. So like I'm just going to pick IT for now and just go for that and see what happens.
Werner,
Thank you.
I know you're welcome. That was a long speech. Do you guys want to add any color to that?
The only thing I would add is again, as you start to interact with different recruiters, you'll have to make your own decision about, is this somebody I want to work with? Because like in every profession, there's some really professional, really good recruiters. And then there's some people that, they're only out for themselves, to be honest with you.
And do you have to commit to a recruiter, like for a realtor kind of thing where, okay.
Nope. Yeah, they might. It's possible they will ask you to do that, to have what's called an exclusive relationship if they feel like you're somebody that is very marketable for them. But no, you absolutely do not.
Great. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. You definitely don't have to. A lot of them, to Shira's point, some of them are asking, and they may send you, a link to register or upload your resume and all those things. But if anybody ever says, hey, can you sign our exclusive agreement? That's something you have to think about. And the other thing I was going to say too in your approach is, as you're looking and searching on LinkedIn or wherever else, a lot of recruiters will say in their about section, like, hey, I specialize in senior level IT, placing senior level IT. They may tell you exactly, because if they don't and you can't find that, then that'll be your first question is, hey, look at my background. Do you work with people like me, or what types of people do you place the most? And that'll help you pair and match better too with the recruiters who fit better and probably stand a better chance of being able to help you versus someone who's like, oh yeah, come on in, sit in the back, sit in chair number 99. I'll get to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Sure. All right, Robert?
Yeah, I had I was on a different call and there were some very young people on there, some college students. I'm gonna pinpoint part of this question. Someone who was probably middle age, she mentioned being married, talked about the age of her kids, asked how to match her resume to a job posting. And I put in something about use a word cloud, look at the picture, look at the words. Someone else said, one of the college students, they were using Chat GPT. Now they were using it for everything. They were using it to write letters, to write cover letters, to write, because they can't spell. But but I'm wondering if you guys have any solid feedback on the Chat GPT, if it's a faster, more accurate way of doing this than, say, using the word cloud. The word cloud makes you think, what was interesting was the college students had no idea what I was talking about when I put in the word. So I'm thinking,
I would
say
so-
nothing because I don't want to look like some out of it old guy.
No. Look, I'd be very careful. Okay, when you're using, whether it's the word cloud or ChatGPT or whatever else, job scan, any of those things, you can, like with any AI tool, there was the theme today, right? You can. It hallucinates. It does. It'll highlight, whatever words it thinks, are most prominent. Just because a word shows up multiple times in a job posting does not mean that's the actual key concept that the employer is looking for. You need to use your noggin, right? You need to read it and not just scan it, but understand what this role is all about. Reading comprehension is important here. Okay. This is not just about a ChatGPT tool that's going to make it more efficient. Now, I appreciate that is, a little anathema now because we've got so many, you got hundreds of applications and all these different things. And I realize it can be considered a time saver, but it is not, it's the qualitative versus quantitative thing. Go for qualitative, be selective in your search. That's the other thing. I think a lot of job seekers are applying to things that are way outside of scope. You've got to really think this through. Read the posting. Somebody yesterday, one of my coaching clients, where I asked, people are allowed to do this with me. He wrote, he's like, "Hey, Cher, what do you think of this job?" Just, gave me I get that frequently, right? What do you think? So I read it from my lens. Now, remember, I'm objective, and this is the thing. You are a subjective candidate, job seeker. That's normal. You are a human being. And so you're going to see what you want to see. That is the way the human brain works. We have these optical illusions going on and selective perception. But I happen to be objective, which is why he sent it to me. Fine. So I, read it. And in truth, I'd say 85% of it was actually on target for him. But there were a couple of bullets in there. I'm like, hey, did you notice that they're asking for this qualification that I know is not in his skill set, and nor would he even want it to be? And I was like, look at that, right? But I read it. I don't say that he didn't read it, but maybe he read it and didn't notice the way they phrase things, that they're actually asking for this particular skill. Ergo, when you're trying to have your resume customized or do word cloud or whatever, that computer is not going to read it like you and I would read it and actually analyze it, right? It's just going to be looking for the keywords. And so I would absolutely recommend go old fashioned. Okay. Could you use it as a little bit of a crutch? Sure. But as they say with AI, you always have to have a human in the mix, or as a colleague of mine likes to say, HI, human intelligence, right? As opposed to artificial. So yeah, keep going with, and I would encourage our younger colleagues to do the same. So this is where some of us who are a little more traditional and old fashioned can help them along and say, don't just rely on this as a crutch. Please let me teach you how to analyze the posting so that you can make a thoughtful decision.
Thank you.
Mm.
A quick comment. When I was taking writing courses long ago, I took a number of script writing courses, and people actually came out from Warner Brothers Television and Sesame Street, like real people in the industry. And they all told a similar story where at some point their boss would hand them like scripts to read. 50. One guy talked about getting 80 scripts, and his boss is like, look for something. And they would look at the script, one misspelled word, throw it away. There's a very precise type of formatting. And this, oh, the margins are off. They don't respect my industry. Throw it. They were looking for any excuse whatsoever to throw it away.
Wow.
Because they had to go through 80 of them.
Right.
And you're reading a script for a 2-hour movie or even a 1-hour drama. That's a lot of reading. So as I hear this thing in the job hunting,
Very similar.
yeah, like don't give
we have to
reason
find reasons
toss
to screen people out. We do. And I'll give you an example of that, not the typo thing, although that too, there are a lot of employers that will screen out for one typo. I happen to be a little more compassionate about that because I get the, I get the warm document that you overlook. That's just me. But let me give you something actually more to the point. So right now I'm doing a search. It's a director of membership search. And as you might imagine, I've gotten a lot of resumes for it. And I was very, very specific in the qualification section that we were looking for someone from a certain kind of nonprofit background. I'm not going to go into detail here because we're in a mixed crowd, but I was specific because anybody in this sector would know there's a difference between this part of the sector and that part of the sector. I was looking for that part of the sector. And I was super clear. I mean, I could not have been more clear. Okay. And sure enough, I've got tons of people who are from this other part of the sector. All right. And I would write people back very nicely and say, hey, we're focused on people from this part of the sector. Now, I'm sure that person, in fact, I actually had a couple people push back a little bit. I'm sure those people are like, no, but I can do the job. Understand, if we get 50, 80, 150 resumes, we cannot interview all those people, number one. But more importantly, everybody, please understand this. And I say this all the time, employers are risk averse. They do not have time to train. Employers are looking for people who are going to slide into home base with their learning curve. You might feel like, which is understandable, hey, I have transferable skills, I can do this work, and it very well may be true. From the employer's perspective, they need to be convinced of that. Because as far as they're concerned, because they don't have time to train, and we are very lean these days, they want to know you have the qualifications, the industry experience, the knowledge, the understanding of their sector, their customers, whatever it is. And they will often put that in the job description. That's why they're doing it. When they say industry X required or strongly preferred, it's for that reason to minimize your curve. So if you are at all outside of that box, like they want this and you're like 5 degrees away or 15 degrees away from that, it's not that you can't apply, but number one, manage your expectations because they are likely to screen you out. Number two, it is that much more important for you to get an internal champion. Because if you get an internal champion and someone says, look, Mr. Employer, I know you were looking for sector Y, and this person has sector X. Robert, could you just meet him? He's just really fab. And you know what? He's got transferable this, that. I just trust me in this. 5 times out of 10, they'll say, okay, I trust you, John, that you know Robert and Robert's great. And okay. And you never know, you might be that person to go beyond the resume and be able to show them who you are. But from a resume perspective, what they're typically looking for is whatever it is that they've asked for.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess my comment is like, to anyone who thinks I'm going to check, I don't want AI. I think that is a tricky way to remove yourself from this person's pile of resumes. And if you do it, you've just removed yourself.
Potentially.
Yeah. And we say it a lot on this call too. ChatGPT doesn't know your stories and your stats. It can expound on your individual personal experience. It can give you some ideas. It can be used like a thesaurus or a dictionary where you're like, hey, what's a better way of saying this? What's another word? But, and it's a whole nother conversation on, the generation, nothing negative to them, but they grew up. I mean, I'm Pepsi, generation. So, technology grew up with a certain amount of technology and each year it changes. But they're using it a lot to plug and play on a lot of different things. They grew up with phones, they grew up with iPads. That's their world, and less intuition and less original experience. That's great for a lot of things. And I'm sure AI and tech are making their way to where we can use them better in our world of recruiting. But right now, and Shira says this a lot, this is the Olympics. Decisions are made on 0.0003 seconds, the difference between who wins the job and who gets the opportunity. And if you're looking like, matter of fact, let me back up and I can speak for myself, especially if there's a ton of resumes. The first thing I'm asking is who doesn't belong here and who does belong here. And it's just really quick. Nope, to the left. You're not it. You don't
Swipe
look like
left,
what
swipe right.
I don't spend a whole lot of
Have
time
to.
at all. It's like, nope, not you, not you, not you, not you. I might not even look at the whole resume. I just may see two things and do a quick scan. And it's like, nope, we're looking for 11 years. You only have 3 years. No, you're to the left, you're to the left, you're to the left. Now, if I talk to this person, they may go to Shira's point, yeah, but Alki, wait a minute, I can do it. I've done all that. Well, you're not even going to get that chance if you don't have exactly what we're looking for, which is all the more reason to what she said, and Vern talks about a lot, is getting somebody on the inside and letting that be the bulk of your approach. And then secondly, you need to be what they're looking for. It's like dating. We talk about this too. It's like looking for a home. If you tell the real estate agent, I'm looking for 4 bedrooms, a really big backyard with a pool in it. Well, if they bring you back an apartment or a condo that's 1 bedroom, you're going to look at them like, what are you doing? I gave you my search specs. Right. It's the same thing. They look at candidates the same way. What are you doing here? You don't belong here. They taught you.
What is the hiring manager looking for? The hiring manager that I'm working with was very specific. Shira, I need people from sector Y, not sector X. Okay. That's my job as a recruiter, to find that for her, because she believes, and understandably so, and even as I've been talking to candidates, it's been very, very clear why sector X is much more important than Y, or why Y is better than X, because of the understanding of the person's ability to appreciate the business challenges that this organization is facing, which is a very different experience. Not that they're not smart people, they're smart candidates. I get it. But in the scheme of things, if you could only hire one person, what would you do? If you were recruiting, how many of you have been hiring managers? Raise your hand. Exactly. Remember what it was like when you were a hiring manager and you could only hire one person. You likely did the same thing, with one rare exception. And I have seen this happen once in a purple moon, where an employer is saying, you know what? I actually want a completely fresh perspective. That does happen occasionally. I had it happen once where I was doing a search for an association, and they specifically said, actually twice, they specifically said, Shira, please find me a corporate person. I was like, wait, what? Come again? I'm like, nope. In this case, we need someone who's business minded and this, that, and the other. And I did. I got a guy for this one firm or one association, and he was used to work for M&M Mars. He was the guy who get this, that fun fact. This is the guy who came up with the blue M&M campaign. I found that guy. Okay. Right. And for another association, I found a woman who used to be the director, did membership stuff for Choice Hotels, because Choice Hotels has membership programs, and this was a membership. So that does happen. It happens with intention, but it's very rare. Normally, people are trying to stay within their lane or within their industry. Yeah. All right. So with that, we are at 10:30 Eastern, and we're going to go ahead and wrap up. But actually, before we do, speaking of networking, we do this once in a while. I'm just going to take an extra couple minutes here. Everybody go around the room. Let's popcorn around the room really quickly. I know I already know we're all from very diverse sectors and such, but you never know where there could be some kind of connection. So what I'd like to do is have folks go around the room, and I'd like you to say 2 things really quickly, and I'm going to give you some nomenclature. I've alluded to it today. I call it lane versus community. Lane versus community. Your lane is your profession. Your community is the industry, mission, or sector that you serve. So your lane might be you're in marketing, you're in accounting, you're in project management, what have you, is what you do. Your community might be, hey, I'm in commercial real estate, I'm in associations, I'm in government contracting. Now, you may not have a community. That's okay. You might just be a lane person and you can work for any sector. That's fine. But real quickly, mention your lane, mention your community, where you're going, not your background, because we're just going to go aspirational here. And then when everybody else is listening, think to yourself, am I in that lane or community? Meaning, hey, this could be a good networking follow-up where we can have some synergies and help each other with our job search. Or top of mind, do I know anyone in that lane or community that could be helpful to that person? Okay. So what I'd like you to do is do your lane, your community, and then immediately, if you feel comfortable, in the chat, put your contact information so that people can follow up with you. Okay. Lane, community, and if you're comfortable, put your information in chat. Okay. So I'll go around the room. Mark, then Barb.
Yes, Mark Fred, I'm an attorney and I work in the financial services area.
Perfect. So an attorney and financial services. Great. Barb?
Barb Miller, and I'm looking for a role in IT and preferably like a pre-sales kind of a role, and maybe even like in a SaaS kind of community or software or hardware.
Okay, terrific. And by the way, just one more specifically, what part of IT?
Probably IT support at this point in time. Or technical sales.
Okay, got it. That's good to know. Thank you. Robert, then Noni.
Okay, I'm Robert, and I have been an account manager and de facto project manager in several different industries. Right now, I want to go to the other side of the sale. I want to get into procurement, purchasing, buying.
Okay, got it. Thanks. Do you have a community?
No, because
No, you're cross-sectoral.
I've been in import and I've been all the way in Singapore in private equity.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Got it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Noni and then Tammy.
Noni Carmen, I've been finance and accounting is my lane. And in terms of community, I'm coming out of the semiconductor, supporting that. But I've moved to Houston, Texas recently, and I'm not sure what my community is at this point.
Okay.
But I'm looking. Thank you.
Tammy and then Scott.
Sure, I'm Tammy Guidry. I'm looking for a director of strategy and execution role. Sometimes they're also known as director of transformation or product management director. And I'm looking for that role in the financial services or tech industry.
So I can already see Barb, Noni, Tammy, maybe there's a little synergy somewhere in there. So you may want to all follow up with each other. Scott and then Lisa. Scott, you still with us? Oh, good.
Sorry, took a bit on mute. Good morning, everybody. I'm in supply chain, specializing in inventory control or production planning, and my community doesn't really matter, though I do like home goods. Prefer not to be around chemicals much anymore. But janitorial supplies, paper goods, I like that kind of stuff.
Thanks, Scott. Lisa and then Francis.
Hi, I'm Lisa Awkward, and my lane is marketing, stakeholder, and partnership relations management, and I am commercial as well as nonprofit.
Thanks. And then Francis.
Good morning, everybody. I am Francis Mass, and I work in education, interventionalist, and I'm not sure of my community just yet, but I wanted to stay within the school field and education field.
Did you say education build as in construction?
No, as in like as in school.
The schools.
Yes, in
K-12.
Yes.
Okay, got it. All right, great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so everybody just keep putting your contact information in chat. And we'll give another minute for that to do that. And then as soon as that's done, we'll go ahead and wrap up the call today. And for those of you who would like to stay on, I offer a short prayer call for folks as a point of encouragement. So you're certainly welcome to stay on for that. So I'll go ahead and stop the recording now, and then just keep putting your stuff in chat. And we'll look forward to seeing everybody in a couple of weeks. Have a blessed day.